Hi, everybody. Joe Cioffi here. Weather in 5 days in 5 minutes on this Sunday evening. We did the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast earlier today at 12 noon. You can find that in my video library on YouTube. If you missed it, you can watch it on the replay. But I thought this might be a good time to sort of update things. We've had some developments this afternoon that I think are important, and we're going to touch upon them on this weather at 5 today. Winter storm warnings are now up for much of north central and northeastern Pennsylvania, the Hudson Valley, northward, from just north of southern Westchester County, going all the way up to just south of Albany. We've got winter storm watches on the northern flank of this. Warnings are now also in effect for northwest Jersey, for Connecticut, mainly north of I-95, for northern Rhode Island, with watches in southern Rhode Island and southeastern Massachusetts, except the Cape and the rest of Massachusetts, under a winter storm warning. We also have winter storm warnings up in North Texas, and that also extends into parts of Oklahoma, northeastward into southern Missouri. We then go to winter weather advisories in a narrow band in southern Illinois, southern Indiana, northern Kentucky, and a small portion of southeast Ohio. Severe weather and heavy rain, a problem across the south. We've got tornado watches as of 5:45 p.m. Eastern Time from central Louisiana to the southern half of Mississippi. And we've got flood watches, east central Alabama across the northern and half of Georgia, much of north and western South Carolina, southwestern North Carolina, and southeastern Tennessee. And this is all the same storm system. The one that's moving across the south tonight into tomorrow is the same one that will be impacting the northern mid-Atlantic on up into southern New England. As far as what's going on at the surface at the moment, we had a cold front come through last night. That frontal boundary has stalled out across southern Virginia. There's a little wave there in North Carolina. The cold front pushing into northern Georgia and across central Alabama, south central Mississippi into a low. And this is the low we're watching here in southeast Texas, the warm sector that is set up from Louisiana into Mississippi and southern Alabama, of course, is where we see severe weather risk. And in the meantime, when we look at the satellite loop, anytime this winter that we've seen this subtropical jet that is set up from the Pacific into the United States, has been a forerunner of a developing major storm. And once again here, we're seeing the atmosphere basically getting primed up for this on the western end of this cloud area. And here's our subtropical jet. I'll just draw it in for you now. So this is the subtropical jet here. And right back through here is the upper air low that we're watching as that moves on to the east and then eventually starts making a turn more toward the northeast as we move through Monday and into Monday night. The radars across the south, they are loaded with some showers and thunderstorms. We've had a number of severe thunderstorm warnings that have popped up today, even one or two tornado warnings that have popped up, some flash flood warnings there in central Alabama. That rain moving now into Georgia and South Carolina. There was rain earlier that almost made it to southernmost New Jersey for a short time, but that area has now moved on to the east as the frontal boundary has pushed on to the south. Precipitation amounts, looking at a half inch getting up to the main line and into southern New Hampshire and Vermont, looking at mostly an inch to maybe an inch and a quarter from southern New England down into Virginia. And then we pick up for an additional inch and a half to as much as 3 inches of rain on top of what has already fallen across the central and eastern Gulf states and into the southeast. In the west, we're seeing increased precipitation amounts up and down the state of California, particularly from San Francisco northward, where we're looking at over the next and these are 7-day rainfall amounts, by the way. Most of what you see in the east is front-end loaded. And in the west, we're seeing some heavy precipitation of several to many inches from San Francisco northward to the Oregon state line. Now, as far as severe weather is concerned, let me just bring up SPC. And here's our issue for tonight. You see this working tornado watch as of 5:45 p.m. Eastern Time. We have an area of marginal to slight and even enhanced risk of severe weather that's being indicated, and there's a 10% tornado risk in that enhanced zone. Tomorrow, the risk area shifts to cover just about all of Alabama, Florida Panhandle, all of Georgia, and most of South Carolina, with marginal risk in North Carolina up to the Virginia state line. And then when we move on into Tuesday, no thunderstorms are forecast as this storm system moves off the Maryland Delaware coastline and heads out to the east northeast. Didn't really see too much change in WPC's forecast here. This is the probability of at least 2 inches across the northeast. I'll widen it out a bit here so you can see the rest of New England. High probabilities reaching up into coastal Maine. The southern edge of 50%, which is where, if I'm making a forecast map, I'm going to look at that 50% line as where I would put 2 inches. And that runs just to the north of, well, it runs north of Philadelphia, maybe at about Allentown to right around New York City, the North Shore of Long Island, and points northward. Then, of course, you get into the 80 to 100% probabilities when you go just inland. And we'll take a look at the probability for at least 8. And we're seeing that WPC is rather bullish in the Catskills, in the Hudson Valley, north of Route 84, on up and through Massachusetts and southern Vermont and New Hampshire, and also then going back into southern New York. Now, some of the developments that we've seen today would suggest that we might have to shift that 2-inch area a little further south and the 8-inch area a little further south. And what we've been focusing on here is the fact that you've got this, here's this upper low. This is the southern stream system right here. There's a northern stream system as well. And the latest model runs are kind of going back to what they had a few days ago, which is the southern stream system is vigorous, but it doesn't really phase with that northern stream system. So as a result, it tends to slide more to the southeast rather than lift up into upstate New York, because if it were to lift up that way, that would bring the surface low very close to the coast and change the snow over to rain at the coast and maybe even for some areas inland. But the latest runs of the NAM, the GFS, and the European are suggesting that the southern stream system is going to stay a little more separate, sliding out to the southeast. And if we look at where the upper low tracks, and this is something that I pay attention to, if you look at where how the model tracks the upper low, which is kind of like this, normally the heaviest snows will fall in a band about 50 to 120 miles north and west of that upper low track. So if that rule holds, I think it would suggest that at the very least we'd have to pull that southern edge of the 2-inch line down by about 50 or 60 miles or so, and maybe pull the 4-inch line and the 6-inch line down by equal amounts. But before I change my forecast around, which I haven't done, I want to wait to see if this is just a blip. We started seeing some hints of it on the mid-morning runs, and the afternoon runs have taken it a step further. So I want to see this continue tonight into tomorrow morning. If it's still doing this tomorrow morning, then we have to consider adjusting snow amounts higher in areas a little further south and closer to the coast. Low pressure here into northern Alabama, runs up into West Virginia, and this is by 1 a.m. Tuesday. Precipitation on the doorstep of New York City, snow just breaking out on the northern fringe in Pennsylvania. And then we see a big center jump to well off the coast of New Jersey here, out at about 38 and 78. I'm sorry, 38.8 north and about 72.7 west. This low is not tucked into the coast. It's going out more east-northeast. So as precipitation expands and that low starts to pull out, we're going to see colder air begin to collapse, especially aloft, and that will change any rain along the coast over to some heavy snow. And, of course, inland areas will be mostly snow out of this as the low moves out to the east-northeast and passes south of Long Island and south of Cape Cod, and then continues on its merry way after that. So, again, most of the forecasts that you're seeing tonight across the Northeast haven't really changed very much, other than they went up to winter storm warnings. But I'm thinking if we still are seeing the guidance pointing to the fact that the system is going to be a little bit further south and east than recently advertised. And I think if we see that by tomorrow morning, you're likely to see accumulation numbers go up in a number of places. So we, of course, will be on top of all of this, and the Joe and Joe Weather Show will be on tomorrow night at Monday at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. So that'll be right before this all gets underway. So by then, I hope we got it all figured out. We're going to at least try. So we'll see you tomorrow.